Greetings again, everyone. My name is Chat. This here is Chat Chat, and we saw the next epic film by Christopher Nolan, Dunkirk. So Christopher Nolan apparently sat down and was watching some war movies, and he was like, maybe I should make a war movie. And then he looked into history books to see what war people didn't really cover yet, or what incident people didn't really cover yet, and it looked like he pulled up Dunkirk. I'm sure this is not a true story, but this is how I felt watching the movie. So Dunkirk is a story about the British army being pinned down by German Nazis in France, in the area called Dunkirk, where they were enclosed in this thing called the perimeter, and they were just stranded on a beach. And pretty much they were just trying to get back to Britain, but they were pretty much cornered all around by the sea, by the air, by the land. Things were looking dim and grim, but then home came for them. That's the slogan of the movie. 400,000 men trapped, home came for them, and it's ultimately a triumphant story in a way, even though some people might look at them as being cowards, but it's a really great inspirational story that actually happened in our history of this world. So as a Christopher Nolan film, and me being a fan of Christopher Nolan films, does this film stack up to the rest of the Nolan films? Honestly, right now, my favorite Nolan films are Inception, Interstellar, and I would say Dark Knight, which is Batman 2 in the trilogy. A lot of them are science fiction related and fictional in general. So how does this period piece that is actually a true story, in a sense that it actually happened to people in this world, do we still have veterans who actually were alive watching this movie? And does that stack up to this fictional stuff? I would say, yeah, kind of. I kind of enjoy Dunkirk. It's a very slow movie, but it's engaging. It's a very, very slow burn in the beginning. I was watching it in the beginning of the movie. I was so hyped about watching another Christopher Nolan movie, and you're hearing the musical score by Hans Zimmer blowing up the speakers in my theater, and I was just getting really into it. But then I was reaching a point where I was like, okay, Christopher, I get what you're going for now. Is there anything else to this movie? Because he really wants to make you feel that feeling of what happens in war. And we've seen this in other war movies, but Christopher Nolan wants to do it his way. And it feels like, you know, the usual way to show all the terrible things that could happen in war and how gritty and real it felt. I remember watching, I think it was Stephen Colbert, and he actually had one of the actors on there, and he actually watched it with a Dunkirk veteran who survived that situation, and he said the movie is louder than it was in the war. So that's to show you how much effort that Christopher Nolan put into this movie to making it loud and shocking to the system, to make you feel like, oh, this is what people go through in war. But getting past all that, I was just waiting for something interesting to happen. The story itself is kind of interesting in the sense that it follows certain perspectives of different people, but the main character is this boy. He's a young boy. I don't even remember his name. I don't think they say names in the movie. If they do, it's not often. There's a young boy. He's trying to do whatever he can to survive, and he's on the beach. You see him try to get on a boat. He eventually gets on a boat, and then things go south, and it's just so many crazy scenarios that happen to him. But all of those things kept feeling slow. In the beginning of the movie, you realize that Christopher Nolan shows you this kind of timestamp in a sense, and he shows you 3 different timestamps for 3 different characters that involve a bunch of other characters in that time stamp era, and that is pretty much the gimmick of the movie. And once you recognize when the gimmick is actually starting to take place and take hold of what's going on in the movie starts getting really interesting. As soon as that one little scene where you're like, oh, that's what's going on here. Right after that, now you're watching the movie trying to piece together what the gimmick is trying to show you through the story and how the pieces are just coming together. And it's really fun just watching the movie, trying to piece everything together while you're just trying to take in what's happening. So it actually takes a simple story that is told pretty straightforward and makes you think even more about where things are happening and when things are happening and why things are happening and why certain people are showing up in certain times. It's really cool and interesting. But it takes a really long time to get to that point. But once it gets there, I feel like the payoff is good enough. There's also the fact that the pacing of the movie, even though it felt slow and it kept just, you know, doing its thing, it feels like it doesn't stop. As soon as the movie starts, the conflicts just keep following right after the other. There's no point in a movie where these 2 characters just sit down and be like, oh, well, yeah, we got out of that situation. This was good. Yeah, we did it. Yeah, good job, man. Oh, no, they're coming. We should call somebody. There's no situation like that. These guys, they do a situation, something happens, they get out of the situation, then something happens happens again, like immediately, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. It always slows down all the way in the ending when it should slow down, which is really cool. And I like that the pacing was so fast for a slow movie. It's kind of confusing, but once that gimmick takes hold alongside this pushing pacing of a movie is really good. There's also the fact this movie is not that long. It's about an hour and 45 minutes or so. It's really short. It's like, you know, most movies nowadays is 2.5 hours, 3 hours. It goes to show that you don't need a long ass movie to make an interesting movie. And you've probably seen one of my reviews prior to this for Valerian, which had 40 more minutes of movie that did not need to happen. I'm just imagining if Dunkirk had 40 extra minutes of just people talking, I would have a totally different outlook for this movie. But since the movie is short, it gets to the point and you get to enjoy this awesome gimmick and you're ultimately satisfied what happens with the movie. And I don't think I'm just saying this because I really like Christopher Nolan or I love Hans Zimmer, who really did bring this movie to another level with just his music alone, like he usually does, especially like, you know, Interstellar and Inception, just crazy good scores. I felt like the story is just compelling enough and the gimmick was compelling enough that it was just a flat out good movie. And then you also have like the really good actors in this. I can't name most of them off the top of my head because you've seen them around. They're all over the place. You even had the dude from Bridge of Spies who I loved so much, and he was in the BFG. And then you also have Christopher Nolan's staple, Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is in everything he does apparently, and Tom Hardy is just so good in this movie. He doesn't even do much in this movie in a sense of moving his body around, but that's where he excels. It's just his acting is just so good. I'm freaking in love with this dude, man crushing on Tom Hardy hard, boy. So yeah, Tom Hardy kills it. Everybody else does a really good job, but there's this weird thing with Christopher Nolan movies where he needs to crank up the audio or something. It just, a lot of the characters feel like they're mumbling. They're like, what are you saying? Jesus, I can't hear what you're saying. It takes you a little while to tune into Christopher Nolan's audio. It happens every single movie I watch, and I always have to come home, watch it Blu-ray or something, and be like, oh, that's what they were saying. Okay. I watched Inception like 800 times, and I'm still learning different things that characters said in that movie. But yeah, other than all of those weird things that happen and the pacing and the slowness of war, I felt like overall this movie is a good movie, and I definitely recommend it. I liked it a lot. It's not one of my top Nolan movies. It's like Interstellar and Inception is really close. I don't know, but it's definitely not better than those movies, I feel, especially because, you know, I love science fiction and period pieces are, you know, meh. But in the case of war movies now, I still think Saving Private Ryan is my favorite war movie of all time. It's one of the best war movies I've ever seen. And I'm not really a war movie buff, like I'm not into that much, but Saving Private Ryan is so good, so well done. I definitely recommend that. Unfortunately, Dunkirk is not better than that, but it is up there in those war movies. It's pretty good. It's really close, man. I still gotta see Hacksaw Ridge. I'll let y'all know when I see that. I'm kind of late to the party. So yeah, that's it for this episode of Dunkirk Chit Chat movie review. If you liked what you saw here, you could give me a thumbs up. If you don't like it, you could give me a dislike. You know, you have the right to your opinion. And also, if you really did like this video, man, you could go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and we will try and feed you more of these reviews as soon as possible, and we'll get her done, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and just let me know if you actually seen Dunkirk and if you really liked it, and let me know what your favorite war movie was. But yeah, that's it for this episode. My name was Chet, this here is Chet Chat, and I'll see you guys next time, and you just keep watching them movies, boy.